Good morning, everyone. My name's Brian Francis. I'm a community manager with GDC and a contributing editor at gamasutra.com. If you need to refer to me in the third person, my pronouns are he, him. I am joined today by Shell Games VP of Game Design, Harley Baldwin, and speedrunner Utsu. Harley and Utsu, would you please introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Harley Baldwin. As you said, I'm the VP of Design at Shell Games, and many years ago, 16 years ago, I was a senior level designer at LucasArts, and had the great good fortune to work on Republic Commando. I haven't ever seen anybody speedrun it, and so this is going to be a fascinating experience for me, and I can't wait.
My name is Utsu. I'm the speedrunner. I picked up this game a few months ago just because I always enjoyed Republic Commando as a game. And as I looked in the run, it looked more and more interesting, especially since a newer bug got found a little while ago. And so I basically picked it up, and it's been fun to run ever since. And if you need to refer to me in the third person, my pronouns are she, her.
Roger that. Thank you, Utsu. So for folks who've been watching our last couple speedruns, I've mentioned the last couple days that speedrunning is this incredible art form that sort of brings the play in video game closer to the development of video games. Today we are, obviously, as people mentioned, we're running Star Wars Republic Commando, a LucasArts game from 2005. Republic Commando is one of my favorite shooters from my teenage years. It's a Star Wars game without Jedi. Its cultural relevance is still felt today, as its heroes Delta Squadron were featured in Star Wars Clone Wars, the TV show. Karen Travis's books kept love for the Clone Commandos alive and sort of built out the Commando group in the popular eye for a number of years. And just this year, Lucasfilm announced another upcoming series about clone soldiers, Star Wars The Bad Batch. While Republic Commando isn't the only reason that, fans have fallen in love with the clones and the different, nicknames they give themselves and the roles they occupy in Star Wars, it's definitely a big reason for it. It's why we're here. It gave birth to Karen Travis's books. From a game side, Republic Commando captures a particular moment in game design that's a halfway mark between classic shooters like Doom and modern shooters like Fortnite, Call of Duty, or Apex Legends. And we're lucky to be joined by Harley, who, as she mentioned, she was a senior level designer on the game, to talk about what it was like making games in that era. Also, we are here because there are some particular ways that Utsu will be breaking this game that I really want to see how she reacts to. With that in mind, really quick, I'm going to look at chat. We have folks like Taylor D, Alex Jacobson, Heath Close. Thank you all for joining us. Ryan Lippert wants to say, this is one of the most overlooked and underrated Star Wars games. It was a huge part of their middle school gaming days, mine too. Folks in chat, if you have questions for Harley or Utsu, if you're and we're going to ask to keep it on topic. I know we've got some runner fans in here, and I appreciate having you here, but we're Game Developers Conference. We got to keep it game development. If you have questions for Harley about working on this game, feel free to ask him. If you're a developer and want to know about speedrunners and speedrunning games, feel free to ask them for Utsu, and I will grab them. With that, I think it's time. I believe the battle in the Geonosis Arena has kicked off. The war has begun. Utsu, take it away.
You want me to start from new game?
Start from new game, please.
All right.
Oh, I've got chills.
Welcome, little one. This is your first day. Your designation will be RP-01.
I was just rewatching Clone Wars, and Ton Wei was in a bunch of episodes that I featured in. I love the design of these creatures. They're influenced by the Greys. Episode 2 does a great job with 50s sci-fi aesthetic and importing it for a new world.
Yeah, this whole sequence was basically done by animation and technical art. When we realized, oh yeah, we need a little bit of a tutorial just about how to use the twin stick shooters, and they got together and essentially skunkworksed this to a pretty final level of done. was really amazing when we came in. Oh, look, this has basically already been handled.
Yeah. It's kind of not a level, but it is like a brief, like, you know, it's in the narrative space. It's not a cutscene because it's not pre-rendered, and it's not a level because the player doesn't move during it. Although there is a brief, this part, the tutorial.
Yeah.
Like, this is really neat. I actually personally referenced this. I was running we were running a Clone Wars RPG session using Fantasy Flight Games RPG system, and we had a bunch of new players who never played with the system before. So I was like, right, Clone Wars Republic Commando handled this. We'll just pretend we're on Commando doing a training session.
Yeah.
Real quick, let's go to chat and start taking some questions. Here's one from Big Law for Harley. What's the most interesting hitch you had developing this game?
I think the most interesting one that we had as a team overall was that originally the Commandos were indistinguishable from one another. They were clones, right? We figured they were clones, and we were working in the context of the movie, in which clones are clones are clones, and so we had all four of them using essentially the same voice or voice alikes. And it became clear that was difficult to know who was doing what. There were gameplay implications that were a problem. And when we showed it to George Lucas, he felt that it would be a stronger story if the clones were differentiated, and lent his support behind the idea of giving each clone a personality. That stuff actually came in pretty late, and it was only through the amazing gargantuan efforts of the writers, the artists, etc., that we actually managed to get the four distinct Commandos in, and to give them personalities, and just everybody. It was an amazing new feature and new conceptual feature that sort of came in without a hitch. But if I was on a game where that level of change came in at the late date that it did, now with the experience that I have, I never would have tried to pull something like that.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Could I, not to interrupt, but could I ask a quick question? Is there a way that I can mute the Zoom audio feed?
That's a good question.
Because I'm hearing the game twice, and it's a little distracting.
If our tech team, is there a way to mute that through Zoom? While we go ahead with the run, while this cutscene still loads, let's see here. It sounds like we just killed the audio. That's fine. We'll be okay. Utsu, what's your favorite level to run in this run?
Like individual or like section? Because I know.
We'll go ahead for the sections because there's only 3 levels if you look at it at the top level.
All right. My favorite one is the Republic assault ship. My very favorite is the first, technically second hangar that you clear in the Republic assault ship. The one where you have to like set up for the incoming droid dispensers.
Yep. All right, with the run beginning, let's go ahead and watch our first hack take place. Just a little jump over the wall, which I think actually might be allowed, but then Utsu's about to do something that when we were testing this was already just like, oh no, like, that's not how you play this game. There we go.
Little behind the geometry there. Nice.
Sweet. I have a fun fact about this level. The goal for the first part of this mission is to hunt the Geonosian General Sunfac. Sunfac has actually been, he's still kicking around. I play the Fantasy Flight Games tabletop game X-Wing Miniatures, and now that they've introduced the prequel factions, they've released the Geonosian Starfighter, and Sunfac is the most powerful. He gets to be a character in that game because he's just riding around in the Geonosian Starfighter. Also, he sucks. He's such a pain to deal with when other players use him.
So something you probably just saw me do there is you probably saw the load bar go twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's because I quick saved and I quick loaded during the load screen. Which, doing that, from what I understand, is the level triggers spawn after your character spawns, and if you quick save and quick load before the character spawns, it messes up the triggers. So here I can tell 6-2 to hack this console before I'm even told to hack it.
Nice.
I didn't even notice that when I was watching this run before. Harley, I noticed watching this run, you know, a lot of interactions are slowed down by the force timers on using, you know, interacting with doors or ordering the clones to interact with doors. Were those sort of meant to pad out the game a little bit? They do, like, sometimes it's very clear that they're meant to make things feel tense.
Right.
But I'm curious what some of the philosophy behind that was.
So partly it was because we knew there would be places where you might have, you know, a threat on this side of the door that you have to deal with. You're trying to get through on the other side. I don't think there was really any desire to pad out the game so much as there was to give level designers tools to create that feeling of tension, right? We discovered early on that if you don't really have to depend on your squad, then you'll just leave them behind. You won't pay attention, and it's not going to feel like a squad game.
And now?
Since that was
like you
are now. And I suspect that there's going to be a lot of that in this playthrough. It was a pillar of the game to try to do that. So I also noticed, though, you don't need your squad because you're skipping a lot of triggers and that kind of stuff. So you've got a lot of AI just standing there waiting to be told it should wake up. Again, a thing I think I'm going to see a lot of today.
So this is going to be the most confusing part. So first, I quick saved and quick loaded here, and then if you press the walk button, the shift button, while you go down a zip line, you don't go down the zip line. So I get to just be up here, which lets me do this.
Oh no.
Which lets me walk by the glass.
Nice, because there's no collision up there to keep you to do it, because nobody would ever be up there. Yeah.
Usually, once you shoot the glass, you got to go through this whole cutscene where you open up that door and then 07 has to shoot down a thing. But because I quick save and quick loaded, I can just come over here to the exit door and leave. So I quick save with a mouse button during this. I have to do with a mouse button during these, or I have to somehow press start before it fully loads to quick save. And doing that lets me quick load, and I can walk around in this cutscene.
Oh my goodness. I do love getting to look at these armors from this angle in this cutscene. You can really get to see how I love like the hologram, you know, like the like all the ways that like it gathers and orients people in the scene, you know, like everyone gathering around waiting for orders. Harley, we were talking before about how the personalities for 07, 40, and 62 got added late in the game. I've heard Brett DeVille, friend of the show, Brett DeVille, who helped make this happen. Shout out to our guy. I've heard him talk before about how that's sort of the reason that even though each clone has a specialty, those specialties aren't really reflected in the gameplay. Like, you know, like Sev isn't, if I have my roles remembering right, like Sev isn't really any better at sniping than any of the other clones. That sort of sounds like it came from the same place, right? That late arrival.
Well, it did, and it also, like, we did do some experiments trying to figure out if we tuned them differently, would it make a difference? What we found was that there was so much cognitive load trying to figure out who to put on what that it actually frustrated players. And so we went with conceptually, you know who you want to use things, and players who want to opt into that can, and players who don't won't. We didn't publicize that there wasn't any difference, obviously. In fact, it wasn't really well known or widely known until pretty late. And it was still like I had people walk up to me for years telling me, you know, I really like using Sev on the sniper positions, etc. Because your brain just convinces you that that's the way it is.
Yeah.
That is certainly not unique to Republic Commando. The idea that you can let the player's expectations fill in features that might otherwise be actually problematic to implement.
Yeah, Gabe Pafter in chat wants to say that Brett DeVille's oral history stream is great, highly recommended. Also, yeah, I watched that stream too, and I picked up a few facts that are in my note sheet from it because he was nice enough to grab some guests from he grabbed some of his former coworkers. I don't remember, Harley, if you were on it, but that was a lot of fun. I think that was like back in 14 or 15 because I remember watching it at my old job.
I wasn't on that. I was on the most recent. He and Tim Longo did a Dev Game Club podcast very recently where they played this game and interviewed a bunch of the people who were developers on it. And I did get to be on that one. It was great. I highly recommend it if you're interested in the game generally.
Yeah, Mariana McQueen wants to say that they love these skips, and so do I, Mariana. Heath Close would like to know, was there significance behind the names 0740 and 62?
Not that I know of. Definitely 38 though.
Oh yeah.
There's a tradition at LucasArts. Well, there was a tradition when LucasArts existed of naming characters and rooms and things and robots and whatever you could after THX 1138, which was an early and seminal movie for George Lucas, and which a lot of the techniques that he used to create the Star Wars franchise generally were explored early.
Yeah.
And we all had, I think, a deep fondness for the movie, so reflected it as much as we could.
By the way, if you're a person who loves Star Wars but also hasn't checked out George Lucas's film American Graffiti, I finally watched that late last year, and I was blown away. God, like what a! And it's funny because there's an 1138 reference in that movie too. And I'm so you get to see Harrison Ford, right before Han Solo, and B, such a wonderful movie, like such a straight, like it couldn't get made today, is what I felt watching it, and it was so wonderful to watch. Gabe has another good question. Does the AI have a preference if they point us at a snipe point and all the squad mates are available? Does the game default to Sev over others?
I don't think so, but it's possible. I mean, the AI programmer who worked on this, John Hancock, he spent the entire development cycle of the game working on it, and that could be in there, and I honestly wouldn't know. The level of craftsmanship that he put into the squad AI was truly mind-boggling, and it's certainly possible. It's also possible that you just think so because your mind's doing confirmation bias every time you see Sev walk up to a snipe point, right?
Yeah, you only remember those times, not the other ones.
Yeah. The load save hack or the quick save hack is really interesting. I mean, it's certainly standard practice in game development to figure out what you think your most airtight level load and save scripts are, and once you've got that, you replicate it all over the game, right? So if somebody finds a way to hack that, they've essentially got a backdoor into the entire game, which is what you're using right now.
Something that I wanted to say back there is that if you didn't see it, so following props, if you quick save and quick load, will just be frozen in air where the quick save happened until they're interacted with again. And so that let me skip 2 bomb planting portions. What that also did is it displaced this bridge here.
Oh no!
So if I try to go the correct way, the intended walk through this way.
Yep.
So to get past that, you have to do this.
Oh my goodness.
Go where the bridge was. Oh, fascinating. Yep. Right, and that would have been an optimization of physics, because back in those days, having any kind of physics simulation air game was incredibly expensive, and so we had to find ways to turn it off as soon as we possibly could. If the player's not looking at it, etc.
From chat, Big Law says that's goofy as heck. I agree. Harley, I have a question for you while we roll ahead. Utsu, feel free to just interrupt us if you have a great hack or skip to show off. What other games from the time of development were you sort of inspired by as a level designer?
Well, I mean, you always start with Half-Life, right?
Yeah.
But everybody does. We were definitely looking at early multiplayer squad games. definitely looking at other. Sorry, the repeat of that makes me feel like I'm in the Matrix, and kind of hijacks my brain.
This hard. I struggle with this so much, and I don't know why. So what I'm doing here is, you can climb through this window, but I can't remember I can get this, but I just can't remember the correct angle to go at it.
It's a little hole in the collision somewhere that you can just hit.
I gotta.
This is something we discussed in one of our earlier ones. Is how sometimes these hacks, because you're burning so much time elsewhere, it's okay to, like, run these hacks over and over again, even if it takes a second.
Yeah, this one I can't really afford to just not do either, because it saves so much time.
Yeah.
So you just tap that to.
It's so interesting. The way that you play this game is not at all about trying to create a sort of coherent narrative, and I don't mean the story of the game. I mean the narrative of what you're doing as the player, as the character. It's really about creating a narrative of how the game was built and how you have sort of hacked insight into the way the game was built. I feel like watching speedrunning is a thing that people who want to get into game development should do, because it just shows you so many of the secrets of how we do this stuff.
Yeah, Harley, you didn't work on Geonosis specifically. We're going to see your own handcrafted levels when we get to Kashyyyk, but you were helping other designers work on these early levels. Do you have any memories about, like, obviously not about trying to make sure players didn't do this, but do you have any memories about helping your teammates figure out what this game should feel like in its early stages?
We did have a really. We spent a lot of time on the falling bridge that you skipped earlier, because it was so much about establishing place, establishing enemy, establishing how useful sniping could be. There's a sort of half tutorial, half cutscene early on with the bridge where you're supposed to snipe a Geonosian,
just restarting the whole level just in case.
That's good. Yeah, that's fine.
Because we were learning so much about establishing place and character of a level, we spent a lot of time as a level design group looking at that and discussing it and playing it and giving feedback and seeing new iterations and stuff like that. It was a very early level to come forward. The way that essentially the development on this game worked was that one level would be running out ahead, trying new things, trying to meet new goals, whether those were technical or experiential or whatever, sometimes tools, to make sure that would work for other people, so that everybody didn't get stopped by a oh, nope, that's not going to work moment later on, that you'd already had time to work that out. And so this was one of those levels, right? We also knew that because it was the very beginning of the game, we were going to need to be able to build it, then build the whole game, then come back and make sure that it was supporting what it needed to support, both in terms of tutorial and story, narrative context. So it got a lot of that stuff.
Taylor,
I meant to do. Also, I think one of my follow notifications went through my OBS.
Oh, interesting. Really quick, Taylor D first wants to say you got this, Utsu. So you got some support. Taylor would also like to add in, from a longtime speedrunner, watching speedrunning has to be done with the proper mindset if you're a game dev. We often like not having these types of tricks patched out, and in their experience, devs will often use runners as free QA, which isn't fun. Both of the other developers we talked to this week definitely acknowledge that, like, they see a bug that shows up in runs, and they actually go out of their way not to patch those out, because it doesn't interrupt the main player's experience. They definitely do that, but I also could see I could see some dev watching GDQ or whatever, and being like, "Oh no, we have to eliminate that bug for some reason they feel is valid." But I understand where Taylor's coming from.
Yeah. It's interesting. What I have taken away from things like this is, well, okay, so sometimes a bug comes up and it's in the player's favor, right? But it's going to be rare on some kind of a vanilla playthrough. For me, like I mark those will not fix, and I do it with a kind of a joy, because I know that a curious player might find that, and it's not going to break anything else that they're not interested in having broken, and they get to walk away feeling like they've outsmarted the developers. That being said, I absolutely am not claiming that we find all the bugs and decide not to fix them. Certainly, speedrunners find bugs that we haven't found, but it's also true that probably every game you speedrun has a few of those little love letters to curiosity sort of left in the game. It is our job to make things that people enjoy. And it is also our job to keep a wide variety of player types in mind, right? Yeah, you can make some games for a very narrow player type, only people who, whatever, like to collect everything or whatever. If you can, there are situations in which that can happen, but especially when you're talking about AAA games, you have to appeal to a wide variety of player types because you need those sales. So, you know, I always look at bugs like that as like, do we have to fix this if people who are sort of just playing through without looking for stuff like this won't find it or be bothered by it, but people who really, really value it might find it and have a great time with it.
Utsu, I'm not asking this from a hurried up perspective, but I just want to know, would it help you if it was okay if we skipped ahead? Like, as much as I want to see this hack, I also don't want you to feel bad if you take some while to do it.
See, the issue is I don't know if I can just skip it. Oh wait, yeah, I can. Let me give it like 5 more tries. This isn't that hard. I have literally no idea why it's this difficult. It's just not cooperating with me.
Yeah. Hey, look, it's these uncertain times. We just sort of have to roll with the punches. Yeah. As I've said 20 times this game. So.
It's entirely possible that I'm the one who put the bad geometry here. You know, at the end of any dev cycle, once you've done all of the creative stuff, a level designer spends a lot of time just going and trying to put in geometry to keep people from doing stuff like this. And if you're a tiny bit slapdash or your verts aren't snapped or whatever, you know, it leaves a hole.
Yeah. Gabe would like to know again, did the team explore multiplayer with AI squads like in single player? If not, why? If so, why? If not, why not? Or if so, why didn't it make it into the game?
Yeah, we didn't, and the answer is actually really simple. With the hardware that we were running at the time, both the PCs that people had in the home and the original Xbox this game released on, there wouldn't have been a way to make decent-looking multiplayer arenas and still optimize enough to have all of those characters in the game.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Utsu just fell through a lot.
Oh, I just did the bug where you stop a zip line, and that whole ship isn't solid, so I can just jump through it.
Nice.
That's sorry to interrupt you, Harley. It was just sometimes when you watch it, you're just like, oh no, my brain.
I just progressed to the next mission, which is literally right after that level. What you missed was me jumping through the window, dropping down to the very last bomb plant, and then jumping over a gap and walking to the end of the level.
There's kind of a weird hack with these turrets too, right? Like you just walk by one. Like I mentioned, I think there's a hack that.
Oh yeah, the turret isn't for actually a tiny bit here. Gotcha. So these later parts look a little bit similar.
You know what's kind of funny about this is this looks a lot like what it looks like to see a level designer play their own level. Some of these, it's not like we deliberately leave exploits in for our own use, but you look at them and you're like, well, nobody's going to find that, right? It's only something I can use because I know it's there. And so when you're doing what we call a smoke test, where you're just checking to make sure the thing you just changed didn't break everything, you know, this is how you run your level, really.
Yeah. Harley, did you want to add anything else about the conversation before from Gabe's question? Sorry, I cut you off because I was just so...
I'm sorry, I can't remember what we were talking about, so if you remind me, maybe?
AI for multiplayer squad, like putting squad in multiplayer.
Yeah, no, it wasn't something we ever would have really been able to consider just because of the optimization requirements and wanting to have good-looking arenas. There was a long time when the reality was you could have about 5 characters on screen, maybe up to 8 if they were really optimized, and that was going to be it. And so with the numbers of players in the arena, it just wasn't going to work.
That's scans. Speaking of optimization, what was it like? You've been in development for a long time. What was it like optimizing this game for the original Xbox, and then later PC? I forget if it was simultaneous or not, but you know, the original Xbox is sort of what I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Versus compared to your experience helping your team optimize their games now.
Oh well. So we developed on PCs that were built as close to the original Xbox config as possible at the time, if I remember correctly. And so it wasn't until pretty late in the game that we had it on the Xbox. Mostly everything fit and worked okay. There were a few problems in terms of textures. Texture memory, I remember being a real problem, and that we had to sort of punch and scooch specific textures that showed less down until everything else fit, and that was a long process. Geometry wasn't too bad. The thing that was a real surprise, I think, was it was a new console, so you just never know. I've seen this happen with other new consoles as well. Was the problem of streaming. You know, this is Unreal 2, I believe, and its streaming capabilities were one of the reasons we decided to use it without having to write our own streaming engine. But until you're on the target hardware, you can't really know how fast you're going to stream in and out. And there were some places where it was like, oh no, we are not going to stream that fast enough. We are going to have to figure out a way to tap dance right here so that things have a chance to stream in. So in some of the Kashyyyk tree, as you go up the tree, you'll actually see some of those, and yeah, there are a few of them where we weren't supposed to have a chapter break, but we had to have some kind of break, or it just wasn't gonna be able to do it.
That makes sense. Looking back at chat, Heath says from the skip from a few minutes ago, they can't stop moving in their seat to help you get Utsu get over that rock. Colt Zone Games just wants to say hi. Hey, Colt Zone. I've seen some of your tweets at GDC Summer this week. I hope you're having a good time, and I think you are. So I'm glad you joined us. Gabe, just keeps throwing great questions one after another. One of the things they remember desperately wanting when they first played Republic Commando was a level where you operate the turret on airborne transport. Was anything like that ever prototyped, and would similar optimization constraints apply?
Yeah, we did some early prototypes about a variety of different things where you might be on a moving platform, vehicle, etc. But at the time, the state of the art and the level of physics simulation we could do, it was so prohibitively expensive that we weren't able to make that work and make things like enemies work. You know, these days it would be pretty simple to do, but he was asking a lot of the machines we had available at the time. So.
I love when you consider the technical limitations of any art, actually, whether it's film, music, or games, and you dig into sort of how the art is informed by the technical, by those technical limitations. Like think how lenses physically morph the look of film, or how games, depending on how much memory was available, could only ship certain features, even if something may have been executable on the perfect machine, but not on every machine. I love it. I love thinking about games like that, because it's always like once you understand the restrictions, you sort of understand the art, I feel like.
Yeah. It's also really interesting how in any console's life cycle, early on, you get a bunch of games that are trying to take a big swing at what this new console can do. As teams get really good at pushing the console to its very limits, you begin to see some really amazing stuff. And then with the next console life cycle, that stuff is all, you know, just de rigueur. And now you've got teams pushing new stuff. But you know, there are conversations that happen at the end of that 5 years that are conversations that would have been completely shut down at the beginning because, like, we just don't have the time to do that. But, oh, we've learned this and this and this, and those 3 games, we can put them together and make something possible. PlayStation 2 was very much the apex of that because it had such an incredibly long life cycle. You know, you had teams fully dedicated to making games on it for 10 years straight, and people really knew at the end of that console's life cycle how to put it through its paces and make it do stuff it was never actually meant to do.
That skip over the rock there, Utsu, was incredible. That was really fun to watch.
So something I didn't mention is so you saw me get on and off the turret. What that does is, for some reason, I don't know what exactly causes it, but getting on and off of a turret just makes you invincible to everything but explosions.
Yeah, I know why that is. It's because we couldn't make the turret's collision impervious to shots because when you want to take somebody down by shooting them on the turret and you know you can see past the shield or whatever, you want that shot to hit as a player, right? But if you're on the turret, you don't really have the same situational awareness, and so they can just run up behind you and shoot you, and you can't know that happened, and that turned out to be a huge feel bad in playtesting. And so I'm sure we just made it so that no, if you're on a turret, you have to be able to see the threat, and that threat is going to be something that will explode. So it was essentially a way to make sure that the player experience matched what their perception was while they were on the turret.
That's so cool. We're like, I just love like the little, you know, okay, we solved this problem, it's good. And then years later, runners are like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to the chat again while we open this flip this dial. Big Law wants to say that that seems to be a recurring measure with PC releases around 2005. One release in particular, Enter the Matrix, had its vehicle speed locked to the clock speed of the CPU, and as a result, modern PCs have the vehicles move far faster than they should. Taylor D says that there's a lot of runs like that where frame rate is tied to physics, and that unless it's emulated by the game, the game is absolutely broken. Gabe says, sorry for spamming questions. They just love this game, and the chance to hear from the dev is amazing. Gabe, don't feel sorry about spamming questions. We're just trying to make sure everyone gets a chance to ask questions. But yours are great. I'm glad Harley can answer them, and I hope Harley's having as much fun as I am. Like, this is gold. This is just chef's kiss every 5 minutes.
How many times do you use the turret hack?
3 times. Also, something you missed there was there's a whole section where you wait for a bridge to extend for about a minute, but you can jump off of the console around a corner onto some collision, just walk over to where the bridge is supposed to be.
Oh yeah, I saw that when I checked the run out.
You aren't actually supposed to get up there, but if you use that console, then you can get up high enough.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of optimizing physics, absolutely the cheapest way to do physics is to have collision where the player will be able to walk later and have things animate into that space, right? And I'm sure we did that a great deal here. I'm trying to think of a place that I'm sure that we actually used simulated physics to change the path. I might be able, when we get to the levels that I actually put together, I might be able to find one, but...
Oh, I cannot wait for us to get to Kashyyyk. Let's just say that.
So here's something kind of neat. This Geonosian Elite cannot hurt you if you enter this hack from an angle.
Fascinating.
Also, something I've noticed about some of these demolition charges, some of them hurt you and some of them don't. Some of them, like, you can be right up close to, and you only lose like a tiny bit of shield. Some of them, like that one, you'll explode it like right up to it, and it'll just kill you.
Interesting.
So the ones that you see me back up from, those are the ones that actually do damage. The ones that I just shoved my face into, I don't care about.
Sounds like some inconsistent parent-child relationships in the prefabs in Unreal.
That's fun. I know that that's a technical thing, but you're just like, oh, it sounds like some inconsistent parent-child relationships, and I'm like, oh boy, I've been there. Hey.
Well, both as a parent and a child. Yeah, so one of the things that I did on this game, besides level design, was help set up the technical art pipeline for the maneuvers, including the door breaches and stuff. When you have assets like that that are used over and over and over again to heal things, etc., if people, the way that it's built in the engine is very hierarchical, so that you have different elements that you can add onto the model to make it work. And if people copy that for some reason, because they want to make a broken one or whatever, you can get into a situation where people are using very slightly different versions, and then you think you've made a decision about this is the final version. It will or won't kill people when it explodes in front of them, but you can certainly get into a spot where, unless you're extremely careful with what is deployed to the level designers, you've got different versions available.
After that, going from chat, Utsu, we have a question for you. Alex Jacobson would like to know, how well do you know the process around how a lot of route skips are found in games like these?
A lot of what skips?
How well do you know the process around how a lot of the route and skips were found?
I know next to nothing for how they were found in this game, since I showed up, again, only a few months ago. When all of this stuff was already found. There's been very little found. I think the only thing recent that's been found since I showed up, which again, the community isn't very together in the sense of there's one singular Discord where everybody is a big community and everything. There's just one gigantic Star Wars Discord that oh dear. So it actually took me a while to actually even get resources for learning this run.
I don't even remember if I knew that you could shoot those containers down when I played the game.
Okay, I'm gonna do something for my sanity.
I was gonna say, I was like, are you actually playing on easy difficulty? Because
I am on easy, but I think something might have gone wrong with me hitting new game. Because usually runs are started just from a save to skip the intro cutscene.
Oh, I see.
And it's felt like this whole time that I've been taking just way more damage than usual.
Yeah, I was noticing that because I watched, like I said, I was like, that's more than I saw before. Going for questions in chat again, JD4 would like to ask, it seems like with so much going on in terms of action gameplay and level complexity, was it difficult to address narrative pacing? That's a question for you, Harley.
Sometimes, I mean, the way that levels were made, right, we essentially did a block out of the level first and said, okay, here's where we're going to fight, and here's where we're going to narrative stuff, and here's where we're going to have a rest. And I know that as we got deeper into the development, things like door breaches, sometimes we deliberately put them there so the players would have a chance to take a break and rest, or so that your squad members could say things that contributed to the narrative. So most of that stuff is pretty well blocked out before you end up hooking up, the bulk of the action gameplay. There are certainly times when it doesn't work, and you've got to figure out what to do then. Those aren't usually bugs so much as it just feels really weird, for example, to go from this great big fight into this sort of quiet, introspective cutscene or whatever. And sometimes, you do things like, okay, well, let's try routing the player around. And in levels like this, where the hallways are pretty modular, and it's not super hard to take the modules you have and build a new hallway or reroute a hallway, you can do stuff like that pretty easily. But not late in the game, once all this scripting is hooked up, because this scripting gets extraordinarily complicated. You want to know all of that stuff pretty early on.
Utsu, I've seen you do this hack with the spider droids a couple times where you managed to get into their spawn point before they emerge into the proper combat area. Would you be able to describe that hack for us?
Well, that's not even really a hack. That's just walking towards it before the game intended for you to even be there.
Yeah. It's the simplest hack. Walk in the door and act like you belong. Josh Good would like to ask, were there any constraints in Unreal Engine 2 that limited the team's vision for level designs at the time?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, every level has constraints that limit the vision, right? The first thing a designer asks themselves is not what grand vision do I have, but what are the constraints that I actually have to pay attention to? And this one certainly was no exception. Trying to think of specific stuff. That version of Unreal, and honestly, just the hardware that we're running on, again, it was very difficult to have a really big arena and also any of the connective tissue to the rest of the levels. So you'll notice that we very often have a short hallway, and you know that there's the hallway takes as long as it takes to load, door closes, and you can never get through that again, right? That's all. You know, given our druthers, most level designers would prefer not to have arena hallway gameplay, but it's pretty difficult to do that when that's sort of the way that the software wants to be run. So there are a lot of different tricks that we use to make it feel less like that, but certainly it does come up in this game.
Next question, Michael Gibbs would like to ask, Harley, what made you want to be a level designer? It seems like you get to wear multiple hats of programming and art and gameplay. That's
basically what made me want to be a level designer. I started out as an art tech in the industry, and I really liked art teching. You know, I really liked the system design aspect of it. The technical aspect was fun. The team aspect was great. But I saw level designers getting to take portions of every discipline and put it on a plate and arrange it in a beautiful way to serve up to players, and that's what I wanted to do. You know, there's something about the crux of your gameplay being architectural rather than systemic that just really appealed to me. It made me think about places in a different and deeper way. And having been a level designer at a reasonably large portion of my career, I still think about places in a different way. It's affected everything in my life, honestly, from the way I set up my house. You know, my house is set up with systems for optimized efficiency in a way that I think few people do. You know, they're thinking more, is it pretty? And I'm thinking, how many steps does it take to do this or that, or, you know, etc. So. I think also the fact that I had a strong technical background as a technical artist and a strong art background because I went to school for photography really drew me to something that let me integrate all of those things at once. And then also you get to be in the playtests if you're a level designer, and being the person who actually gets to be there live and watch people not necessarily do this, because you rarely get a speedrunner in playtesting, but watch people be the first people to enjoy the game or hate it. It has its own kind of gravity.
Roger that. I think it's interesting. Utsu does this a couple times in the run where she chooses to be the actor that's interacting with the tense making timing thing where you have to hit the terminal for like a minute. And it's interesting to watch her do that as the player instead of doing what most players do, which is, hey, clone, go do it. Now I'm down and clone, have to juggle my soldiers as I handle the situation. As a designer, what's it like to sort of watch a player make that choice to like look away from the combat and look away from all the spaces you built and just stare at the wall for them by themselves for a minute?
Well, I mean, it's watching somebody who's gone through the looking glass, right? So much of making a game like this is smoke and mirrors, right? And so if the player chooses to put another squad member on that thing, you want to have essentially a play unfold in front of them that they get to engage in terms of defending that person on the console. But if they are on the console themselves, you definitely don't want them feeling like, I just got shot in the back 100 times and that was no fun. And so watching somebody make that choice in this game is, oh, you understand how there are times when we're essentially doing a stage play, and there are times when we're actively doing what combat that you as a player engage in, and you've been able to perceive the difference between those times. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Something that I compare that whole 1 minute hacking section to is the scene in The Amazing Spider-Man where Stan Lee is the librarian and he's just kind of dusting off and cleaning books while all the action is happening behind him.
I do.
So 3 is just hacking away, and behind him is just explosions and robots dying. It's like, I'm hit! And he's just like, oh, there's the codes. Cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Utsu, this section of the game is interesting. We're going through a whole level that is just the clones exploring an abandoned Republic capital ship. And the interesting thing to me is that there's a lot less skips in this section, or at least I noticed a lot less when I was watching a previous run. In part because for a while you're separated from the rest of the clones and you can't send them off to handle something while you stand by the door. So what are your sort of thoughts as a runner about how this part of the game feels compared to the first and third sections?
I like this level. This is my favorite level a whole lot more because in terms of the run, it feels a whole lot more true to the intent of the game. Because I've always said that every level has a theme. Geonosis has the rubble climbing and hopping over things. This game is just, this level is just full on organizing your squad, just making the best use out of them as you possibly can.
Deltas, I've lost 6-2. Are either of you close enough to...
It's really interesting to hear you talk about the themes as basically player verbs rather than narrative themes or sort of higher level interactive themes. It's fascinating the lens you bring to it, which makes sense given what you're doing.
We love to talk about lenses when we're around shell games because that's what Jesse's whole book was about. Jesse Shell, Shell Games, the shell of Shell Games. We're going to go to chat real quick while we let this area begin. Sorry, I'm far away from my screen. Misha Samarodin would like to say it's funny how level design can apply to real life. Taylor D, back again, would like to say that speedrunners make excellent QA, by the way. They know that Naughty Dog hired Oven Donkey, an Uncharted runner, to QA test Uncharted 4. We actually had Dave actually pop up the question to us yesterday when we were speedrunning on Ukulele and the Imposter there, and just wanted to discuss about getting into QA. Harley, what are your thoughts for runners who want to get into QA, or anyone in general? For people who want to professionally play video games all day, and every QA person just tried to shoot me from afar, from wherever you're sitting. What are your thoughts about getting in and succeeding in that field?
So I do think that there are some real strengths to being a speedrunner if you're looking for a gig as QA, right? You've already proven that you can successfully reproduce games and reproduce bugs, and you know what those reproduction steps are. It's super important to be able to communicate that in a way that devs can understand, and to be able to represent what's important to the player and what's not. And again, right, you've got that wide range of player types that you've got to be able to represent for. I wouldn't think it unreasonable to if you're trying to get in as QA and you haven't held that position for to sort of, rather than showcase a whole speed run, show how you've found and made reproducible a bug in a company's game, and then written up those steps so that they can see how you would go about communicating about that. Even how you describe the bug and its impact is important there. So yeah, I can totally see companies being really interested in that, especially if they've got a game type for which that matters, right? There are game types that it doesn't matter much, but it seems viable.
Yeah. Heath, while on the subject of career, Heath Close again would like to ask, what are the most important skills to have when looking for a level designer or wanting to become one?
Oh, the most important skills. Probably the first one is communication. A level designer is the person who takes and showcases the work of every person on the team on screen in front of the player, right? And so you have to be somebody that the whole team can trust and can talk to about the situation of how is their work going to look and how is it going to be showcased rather than made to look weird or strange. That's the number one. Second, I would think, is a pretty decent understanding of architecture. You need to know how people move in space and how they expect space to move around them in order to do level design well. Less so if it's mission design, you know, you get a space shooter, architecture doesn't come in that relevant. But architecture is super important. Some kind of good understanding of dramatic rhythm, whether that's you know, having a background in playwriting or understanding TV. Because you're not only setting up the action, you're also setting up the storytelling, right? You don't build the cutscene. But you make sure that the cutscene is produced for the player in its optimum way, and from the perspective where they walk in the room, they can't miss it, and also it doesn't feel weird, right? We've all walked into a room cutscene, and it's like, oh, this isn't quite feeling right, or you moved me 10 feet to the left and I understood, whatever. Sometimes you're forced into that, but you know, the more you can take care not to have stuff like that happen, the more your team is going to appreciate how you're showing their work.
Yeah, I just realized something else. These turrets are not really hurting Utsu.
So, no, they are. So, something that I want to show off. So you saw how I walked in. This was just a whole big battleground cutscene.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to go and do that quick save, quick load bug. And it doesn't happen anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Nice.
It just kind of, something in the code just never goes through to spawn everybody and engage the battle, so you just kind of get to walk through. These guys spawn just fine, but not anything else.
That's fascinating.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Different set of triggers. No, it's all right. Interrupt anytime.
Yeah, we want to celebrate the, like I said, we want to celebrate the line between what was intended and what's there. Harley, I have before we get back to chat, I have a question to talk about this level. Rewatching this run, I appreciated how the setup for this level is to give this spooky feel. Gabe in chat mentions that separating you from your squad adds to that, you know, that nervous feeling, that, you know, that tension before going into a space. It's interesting where this level goes from there, because there's kind of this mystery about, you know, why are the Trandoshans here? If you're a Star Wars nerd like me, Trandoshans are a lizard race that's really into the slave trade, that do not appear to be aligned with the droid army at first, although this level certainly shows they are later on. So there's kind of like an ambiguity to the whole start of it that's sort of doesn't feel like to me as a player like it fully like that ambiguity never has like a big reveal or anything. The droids just sort of make their way into the story. What was sort of your thoughts do you remember anything about what the team was discussing at the time with this level and playing that ambiguity into the game? Also, I appreciate how this part of Utsu's run is just waiting for everyone to walk in.
They gotta spawn them, right? You can't just spawn them right there. So, yep. This, you're absolutely right that removing the squad was a big thing, and like we had just done a level in which having the squad have your back was super important, right? So having that feeling of being sort of out alone was important to the tension. The question of the Trandoshans, it really comes down to this was an interstitial plot point in our minds between two movies, right? And And we wanted to make sure that you were able to discover something that maybe is obvious in the second movie, but that you were there for understanding that when those two factions ally. We wanted it to feel like, oh well, yeah, you started out just as a clone and you're just running around doing your thing, but you stumble into a sort of conspiracy of enormous proportions. And so this is the beginning of that. Like, these guys don't belong here, and what are they doing overall? It doesn't make a lot of sense. The reveal might be a little bit extended. Man, the environmental storytelling in this level is just so good.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I played it, I was like, this is just great, and I played the game again recently, a couple of months ago, and I had exactly the same reaction, and just both in the moment saying the environmental storytelling in this level is so good, and also remembering that feeling of, wow, the environmental storytelling is so good, and this is how to do it.
We'll get back to some questions in chat, but I'll just finish off with another, God, I'm a Star Wars nerd, comment. Like, yeah, I actually didn't sort of fully realize that there's actually kind of an interesting thing, because this whole game winds up in Kashyyyk. The through line, which is at the time was like it had made in a lot of Star Wars extenuous material, was how the Trandoshans were sort of the mortal enemy of the Wookiees, and they enslaved them, and that leading to Kashyyyk, which is a big set piece from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and just as a natural flow from Geonosis through this Trandoshan encounter on the ship to Kashyyyk. I didn't fully appreciate that before, and
something that I really like about this level is this part here.
Yeah.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized time, huh? Well,
oh, I missed that every other time.
You just literally turn right, and there it is, and he references Episode 4. The only lightsaber in the entire game.
Oh, I was looking up trivia, and it mentioned that you can find one in the game somewhere, and I was like, oh, I wonder where it is. It's actually kind of funny. This is the same kind of ship, just to give a shout out to the devs at Respawn. This is the same kind of environment that, spoilers for those who haven't played Jedi Fallen Order, 3, 2, 1. There's a level where they flash back to Order 66, and it takes place on a ship like this. And you get to, the way they navigate that space and make that feel, a very orderly space suddenly feel like threatening to a child. Like chef's kiss. I just keep saying chef's kiss. Let's go back to chat, because y'all are here to chat with Harley, and I'm just taking advantage. Oh, go for it.
Actually, so first of all, you saw me quick save quickly at the very beginning, which let me blow up a wall before I defeated the big guy. And something you've been seeing is I will press the reload button with a full mag, and it'll cancel animations. So I can come up to these, which usually have to blow up, and just...
Here it comes.
Nice.
So
that's not how that works, but I guess it is how it works.
40 is just gonna be yelling at me like, "Don't worry, keep holding them off. I'll be through soon." And I'll just be here like, "Yep, yeah, I gotcha. Don't worry, buddy."
That's awesome.
Let's go back to the chat, because like I said, if I nerd out about Star Wars, I nerd out about Star Wars. Gabe would like to know, did the holographic HUD elements present interesting rendering or tech challenges?
Probably, but I wasn't super involved in setting that up. By the time they got to me, it was really just, these are the assets that you're hooking up to the prefabs in Unreal, and making sure that everybody knows which prefabs to use for which situation. I know that you'd think that we wouldn't keep remaking these, but you need to with every new console generation. The holographic stuff in Star Wars is such an important and iconic IP element that it in some ways it is a really tempting thing to use as both UI and a way to guide the player, and et cetera, et cetera. And so from a game design perspective, one of the things that one of the challenges it can often pose is you initially overuse it because it's such a great way to give the player information atop the world. But if you overuse it, the players can't tell one part from another, and they again, cognitive load gets really high. You're essentially spamming them with information that they can't process all at once, and so you have to pull back. But yeah, the temptation of, well, it's just an overlay on the world. You can put all the information you need in the world. It's easy to lead yourself down that path.
Kind of interesting because it weirdly, like, it's a faux augmented reality experience, even though I'm sure if you pop the camera out from the player point of view, they would still be there. But it's that's sort of a, yeah. I'm sure actually for people doing augmented reality design, like, that's something worth considering because it's a faux. There's a weird overlap there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly like that. There is a great deal of care and craftsmanship that's gone into the whole idea. Like, this whole HUD, conceptually in the game, is the helmet's display, right? It's not. It's real in that it's AR in the game, you know, just took a great deal of thought and iteration from the UI designer, but also a huge amount of input from both the rest of the team and playtesters.
I will point out before I get back to questions from chat that we did see a few minutes ago Utsu using the turret hack again. And it's interesting how the speed up component there is by eliminating the damage variable, Utsu's just able to roll ahead and start completing objectives while the Trandoshans are running around kicking 3/8 shins, and 3/8 doesn't care.
Something you saw right here in that little area up there is if I quick save and quick load and then immediately push W, D, and crouch, I can sort of clip through an invisible wall and let me walk through, which lets me skip a door blowing up sequence, which also skips, I think, a lot of enemy spawning and turrets turning on, which lets me immediately rescue 6-2. And to go off of the, like, helmet thing, there actually is an option in game to just turn on a sort of helmet HUD.
Yep.
Ooh. I forget if I played with this. Oh, I feel like I did, yeah, because I recognized this health bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I first played the game, but as I tried to run it more, it just kind of got more in the way.
Yep, makes sense. Yeah, especially if you really are trying to understand everything in the level as you move through.
If the helmet was stationary, it'd be a bit easier, but it just kind of gets annoying shaking around as I move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of UI, Alex Dudman in chat would like to know what was behind the decision to have the ammo represented on the weapon itself as opposed to a HUD element, which I think a lot of games were experimenting with this at the time. You can see on the shotgun right now the 24, and there's like a light counter down there, but the other weapons that the Commando uses have little indicators of how many shots are left.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is, in a first-person shooter, very often the character that you're playing from your own perspective is your gun. So the more you can have your gun reflect the state of your character right now, the better, right? And it was as simple as that. We just really wanted people to be able to, without having to look at the HUD in any way, understand what gun am I using, what state is it in, does it need to be reloaded, how much ammo do I have, especially in a game like this where you're essentially scrounging ammo all the time. You know, knowing how long it's going to be before you need to make sure you break off combat and go scrounge ammo is incredibly important.
Josh Good would like to say that Blocktober seems to have become a popular outlet for demystifying the celebrity of level designer, so that we so often see attributed to players. Do you feel that the deconstruction of level design to its most basic components has given both existing and prospective devs a common ground for evolving the profession?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as an art form, it doesn't advance unless people deconstruct it and put it back together. And we don't get fresh blood to have new ideas in level design unless people are finding new avenues into the into it, right? So, yeah, to me, it's as simple as that. Now, to be fair, it's been years since I actually did level design. And the moment-to-moment and daily concerns of a level designer are no longer mine. I try to use my best memory there, but it's a little bit like trying to remember younger versions of yourself.
That's such an interesting sentiment. Chat seems to really gel with the comment you made about how the gun is your character. I guess, you know, with the knife popping out every now and then, you could, is it like first-person shooter characters are secretly just like a pair of arms sometimes.
They pretty much are, yeah. Like optimization-wise, if you pulled this camera out, you're definitely not going to see a character, right? Because you can't afford to be animating and rendering a character that the camera doesn't see, especially when you're pushing everything to its limit, which we definitely were in this game.
Something I'm going to do here is, so I just quick saved. I'm going to quick load again, which lets me move in this cutscene. But my favorite thing about being able to move in this cutscene is you can kill the advisor.
Oh no. Oh no! Oh no! Oh man, oh no!
Wow.
My brain broke.
But yeah, so for this whole dialogue that they're explaining to you, like, what the Trandoshans are doing here and stuff, and what you need to do next, you're just kind of running to your next objective. So you basically cut the time of the level in half.
Awesome.
Alex Jacobson would like to know, was there any thought in playtesting and QA, or even with yourself, Harley, about finding skips within levels like the ones that Utsu's done?
Oh, absolutely. The numbers of skips, I mean, that's 90% of a level designer's job. Once you're at the point where you're only fixing bugs, is QA goes in and finds skips, and they show, and you just can't believe some of them, right? It's just a huge, enormous part of that process. Some of these I find myself wondering, and I can't tell if this is the developer's bias or if this is a possibility that it's real. I find myself wondering if difference in processors and clock speeds and hardware made things possible now that weren't possible on the machines we were running at the time. And I honestly don't know the answer, but I want it to be true because we worked really hard to get this as bulletproof as it could be, and some of these are just a little bit like, oh, come on, we would have found that. I think we would have found that. We should have found that.
Gotcha. Let's see here. Walter Giannuzzi points out, wasn't that a premise of early id first-person shooters that you didn't have to render the character? I'm not super familiar with some of the design history of id's early days. However, John Romero did a talk about the early programming principles of id, and you can, if you have a conference pass, you can still go watch it because it's archived here on Swapcard for a little bit. You can just pop in, watch it. It's like you were there. Let's see. Alex Dudman is replying to Gabe that it's programmed that the advisor shows up in the game as a hologram, but they're still treated as a character by the game itself. Yeah, that's obviously the very simple explanation for that. It's just very funny to.
So there you saw a little bit of my squad organization. I put 07 all the way back there on that sniper terminal.
Yeah.
So that I could tell him to hack a console that was basically right next to him.
Detecting a transmission signature.
Gotcha.
From clone troopers.
Yeah, I love the sort of forethought about if I've got him there, then he's right next to it, kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's why this is my my favorite level in the entire run. Just overall, the assault ship just has a lot of that, like, playing the game in the way that the devs truly wanted the player to be experiencing these clones.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually put something up this level. This is levels of detention area, which the clones joke about, like, as the Trandoshans love the heat. This is also a level that visually maps itself to the aesthetics behind A New Hope and the detention area on the Death Star. Harley, I'm sort of curious because I know that like some of that is also the art team and you know how they choose to make an area look after you all gray box it. Where when you're working with an IP like this, like how do you navigate these opportunities when you sort of realize like, hey, we have the opportunity to draw from an existing art style or an existing space to help players contextualize it. Oh, and I guess you drop into a garbage chute too. Duh. And what's sort of your thought process behind that? I know you didn't directly work on this level, but I'm sure you saw some of it.
I mean, before you sit down, hopefully, before you sit down to even do your paper map of the level at the very beginning, you understand the area that the level will be in, so that you understand the sorts of architecture that you can use to direct the player. We absolutely knew that this was going to be a detention area. I do remember some discussion about whether it was cool to actually go down the garbage chute, but you know, it wasn't. The reality was the conversation was about, is it cooler to be able to actually experience that, or is it more tropey and maybe would make people feel like, oh yeah, here's another garbage chute. And we made the guess that it would be cooler to be able to experience that, and it was absolutely borne out in playtesting, right? That that finally getting to do what Han and Luke and Leia do at the beginning of New Hope. Yeah, everybody wants to do that, right? We were all 8 when that was, oh yeah, no, right, and now here the real adventure begins. So
yeah, it's where the movie becomes a creature feature instead, and not just a run and gun.
Right. In terms of how you navigate that stuff, generally, like when you're working with a known IP, the more recognizable your areas can be, the more players who know those IPs are going to be able to navigate your level design. Again, your architectural, you know, they'll be able to make sense of your architecture without being super confused by it. If this room didn't have that great big open to space window out there so that it reads as a hangar, you wouldn't know where to look for the guns in case an enemy ship comes in, etc. Right? So all of those contextual clues are things you can draw off of in a known IP, and especially if you're talking about an IP that's likely to have fans playing the game because they saw the movie, watched the TV show, read the book, whatever, and they already have innate knowledge about the function of a space. That's everything you want. That's just gravy, where your players get to walk into a space and feel clever in a way that you would have to work really hard for otherwise.
I really appreciate the hangar example. And another point is, because it's a big wall of space, even if you're not a Star Wars aficionado and you're just here because you like a good Xbox shooter, it's a wall, right? Like, it's just a wall. Like, if you walk up to it, you're not going to get sucked out into the vacuum, or the force field won't go down. But what it does
she might do that later.
Also, this level I'm playing now, this is my absolute favorite portion of the speedrun. And it's not even that fast, it's just really nice to just sit through because it's so optimized. But something that just happened there that I have no idea why it happens. When you go down that little ramp into that little chute, for some reason, your squad will always shift into search and destroy. For some reason, and I have no idea why.
I can tell you probably why. I'm not 100% sure that I'm right about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. One of the earlier you asked why. What were some of the pivots that you ended up making when you made the game? And putting defaulting the squad into search and destroy was one of them. We had a playtest where we had pretty much everything working, pretty much all the levels put together. You know, there was polish and stuff to do, but we understood what the game was generally. We had a playtest, and then we had a team playthrough, and some of the feedback that we got that was pretty concerning at the time was, it doesn't really feel like a squad game. Like, I can hear them, but I never see them, and I don't really feel like I'm part of a squad. And the directors, when they would, maybe not every milestone, but periodically they would do a sort of a half-day offsite where they'd take feedback like that and they'd really think about it and hash it out and come back with like, okay, here's the plan. they took that feedback away. They came back and they said, we think we have the right answer. We think the plan is to just basically every time you move into a new section of the game to default to search and destroy so that they'll run in front of you. You see your squad do stuff, you remember they're there, you remember to put them on the maneuvers, etc. And it worked beautifully. It was an incredibly simple code change, and we had been discussing some very complicated solutions, but it really did the trick in terms of reminding you you're in a squad, showing you what your squad can do, putting you in context of what they're going to do. This is my favorite level. This section is my favorite section of the game.
Yeah, so the reason why this is my favorite is because you pop one of the mines on one of these things here over there. So at the moment that the normal droids come out of there, they blow up all 4 of those and immediately kill their own drop pod. You position these guys here so that they're just in as far away as they can be, and then you put someone else right there so that they're right next to the force field power generator, so at the moment that's available you can just tell him to blow it up and then he'll just be right next to it.
Yeah, that's playing like the level designer, like, absolutely.
It's so nice and choreographed.
Yeah. But it's funny, that's my favorite section of the game as well, but for totally different reasons. I love the fact that I have to plate spam for what feels like forever and just not mess even one thing up in order to get through it.
That was a boss, by the way. He was so hard.
Little environmental storytelling. He's running away.
I love how this is the part of the game where you start to notice, like, there's actually, like, when you're in those hallways, there's, like, these lines at the top of the camera, because they're right above the character head that, like, lead you through the space. And they just feel like almost like they're yanking you forward. There's such an interesting, like, psychological, like, when you're watching someone else play this level, and not playing it yourself, you realize that there's psychological things that pull people around, and just your brain grabbers onto, even if you aren't consciously grabbing onto it.
Yeah. I wonder if it'll be relevant. I want to chat a little bit about way back there. You turned right and you saw a dead Jedi with a lightsaber. One of the things that reminded me of is that the job description, or when they put up a job rec for a new level designer at LucasArts, part of the job description was always, do you know why players always turn right instead of left? It was a very specific, and I honestly don't know if it's true, but I still believe it because it is known amongst the level designers at LucasArts that people always turn right instead of left, and so you have to put an end of a hallway there so that they know to hang a left, which is why we put that there. We knew everybody would see it because that, conventional wisdom was they're going to turn right.
Oh, that's so fascinating. Because I was talking with Bill Gardner of 2K a while back about T sections in level design, and his thoughts about those. I know that when I turn right as a player, I'm often like, okay, well, that's the way forward. I need to look for the goodies. But I feel like that might just be like a follow-up reaction to what you were designing at the time, which is response to what players were doing before goodies were being placed in that section.
It's certainly possible. I mean, you put a goodie at the end of a thing so a player knows that there's nothing else there, right? It's not necessarily to make sure they have enough ammo, though you do have to do that as well. So I don't know where that loop, there's a little bit of a chicken and egg question. Do players turn right because they know there are goodies there, or do we put goodies there because we know players are going to turn right?
Yeah. Oh, my brain just broke a little. Oh my god, that's like... It's like
it's a kind of which came first, chicken or the egg.
Yeah. It's secret. It's like you said, secrets of the universe. Or no, Dave was not saying yesterday, secrets of the universe. You were saying through the looking glass.
Yeah.
If we're going game development terms, I guess it's we've crossed the magic circle.
Yeah.
Good old turret hack coming up again. Chad is also. Oh my goodness, yeah. David has an interesting consideration question. Is it true in the UK, Australia, where turning left on a car is easier than turning right? I don't know if anyone's from the UK or Australia and can adequately answer that, but I guess I wonder if that has something to do with our perceptions of left and right across different countries.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but it would be interesting. I wonder if you could get a grant for that study.
Yeah. Funny enough, this tank that's coming up right now, popping up on the elevator, I have a Lego one of those down there on my left. I think it's the first one they released from the Revenge of the Sith toy line. It's missing a few pieces, and it got beat up in the moves that we had to do. But this game is just such like a visual like feast for like, oh yeah, I remember when like this was my obsession when these things were like what I loved thinking about.
Yeah. Is this the only full-size? I don't know if this is the only one in the game.
I don't remember. You might be able to see them from a distance on Kashyyyk, and maybe I know that on Kashyyyk you see like the torrent fighters for the first time. It's so interesting to see them rendered because they show up in the Clone Wars TV show so much now. Like, you know, there's like that, the way they look there is burned in my brain. It's funny to see the same silhouette, but just, you know, like rendered in UE2 as opposed to the animation of Clone Wars. Like all the little details like that where it's like, oh, we made this one asset for this one scene and it looks this way and it clearly looks like the thing that's in the movie. But I actually now don't even remember, because I know this game would have shipped right, you know, in between the two movies. And now I'm just having a Star Wars nerd out moment. I don't remember if the torrents were in Episode 2, but I do remember that they were in the first animated TV series that aired on Cartoon Network with like the little short micro episodes. So now I'm just having a whole bunch of like, wait, when was this? When was this shown? When was this shown?
Yeah, I can't go that deep into that nerd rabbit hole. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm in the rabbit hole by myself, and
yeah,
always
sometimes you end up there.
JD4, were there any elements in the level design ladder, or excuse me, were there any elements in the level design like the ladder on the tank where you had to extrapolate from the canon, or from what Lucasfilm handed you to realize it in the game world? Because that ladder is definitely, he's right, the ladder that you climb up into the tank is definitely like, oh, of course there'd be a ladder.
Right.
But it's not something that I think is shown elsewhere.
I mean, yes. I hate to generalize so much, but in some ways that's what level design is, right? Here's a room with a function. Now let's put a fight in that room, and how do we use the function of the room to give coherence to the fight, right? Here's an object with a function, etc. The one that I think in my memory was the one that really I had to think about a lot was the elevators in Kashyyyk. It seemed really weird to me that Wookiees would need elevators, but we're not Wookiees, and we have to get up and down some way, right? And it didn't necessarily feel like it was going to be a great choice to have a huge amount of shoe leather in order to just go up.
By shoe leather, you mean like ramps and stairways?
Well, yeah, just a lot of walking and running, right? Shoe leather is like, unless you can fill it with action, nobody wants to walk forever, right? And so we ended up with elevators, and it works out fine. And they actually work as a pretty nice progress bar through that section of the game. Okay, going up another elevator, going up another elevator. Ooh, I'm going up another level. But initially, I remember being convinced that wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Bradley Ellis would like to know, when you designed levels, what was your philosophy for designing cover? That's a great question, and I love it.
Me personally, it was give the player enough agency that they can do what they want to do with their squad, right? We had these mechanics where you could essentially have 3 extra guns going at once, and I didn't just want to have, well, here's 3 cover spots where you could put your 3 squad members and that'll help you. I wanted players to be able to really choose how they were going to take on different challenges. That was partly because I had the advantage of getting to play nearly complete levels before I even started making mine, because I came onto the team. I wasn't on the team during pre-production. I came on as production started. So in terms of the player being able to use cover, I at the time tended to be a real run and gun player, where basically my play pattern was find all the ammo and use all the heal stations. So I probably actually, in terms of philosophy, my philosophy was don't put enough cover in to keep people moving.
That feels like sort of a remnant. Games changed a lot in this time. Cover got a lot more important compared to the Doom days, where cover was cover? Doom? What? No,
Right.
It's rip and tear, baby.
Yeah.
We're coming up on Kashyyyk. For folks in chat, just a heads up, we still have a little bit of time left in the run, but we will be coming towards the end. I suggest start asking questions. Harley, when we talked before the show, you told us that Kashyyyk, the camp that's coming up, and then the tree at the end are the areas you built by hand. So feel free to just go in and start telling stories if there's anything you want to tell us about making your levels.
Getting this barbecue creature was a major coup for me. I really wanted to show I wanted to show the Trandoshans relaxing as a way of letting you walk into this space and be relaxed, so that we could do a little bit of ramping up the excitement. But it was late, and there really wasn't a lot of budget or scope for Trandoshan food. But somebody did me a huge favor and made me that barbecued lizard creature, for which I will forever be grateful.
I always think about that when I'm interviewing devs about games, because I'm always like keeping an eye out now after hearing a story from TJ Fixman about Insomniac, about how something that, like, if you think about it like a physical object, yeah, sure, we could probably like make a fake Trandoshan creature, like just a bit of barbecue or something, like some gross meat. Like, yeah, we can whip that up in 30 minutes. In video games, in art, you want me to do what? For one thing? For how much?
Yeah. Yep. That was a carefully crafted ambush, which you basically skipped most of, I'm pleased to see.
That's why I got so excited when I watched. Just what this run looks like on Kashyyyk is so different from the.
Kashyyyk is the most. We don't care about your effort. We want to go fast level.
I keep wondering why that is under the hood. Like, why does the gunship, why does the capital ship have such linear sections versus Kashyyyk has open ones? But I don't want to speculate unless Harley wants to weigh in.
I'm kind of thinking it's mostly just due to the open nature of it all. The ship is kind of closed in, so there's nothing to really climb on. While this has a lot of like hills and that you can climb and stuff like that.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to change the feel so that you felt like you were outside, and so some of that stuff comes from needing to be able to do that for sure.
Oops. That's one of those explosions that hurts you.
Yep.
I wasn't back far enough. Oh yeah, I love how giant the Wookiees are in this game.
Yeah.
They look like bodybuilders.
You don't get to stand next to a Wookiee very often. You want to make it count, right?
Well, hey, go to Galaxy's Edge when it's safe to again, and you can do that there, because Chewie wanders around.
Oh yeah, so something fun I'm going to do in this next level. For the longest time, they could figure out how to get press the walk button to make the zip line stop moving you to work on this level.
Mm-hmm.
But once this, oh, dude, get off me. Once the quick save, quick load thing was found, they finally found the way, and now you can just kind of hop. And through this level, you kind of go all the way around rescuing Wookiees from their cages. No, you just walk over.
Yeah. This is my carefully crafted BSP. Wow. Well, at least you get to see that the entire level is actually spatially coherent, which is a little bit rare, and that it all fits in the space that it's supposed to fit in real space. I'm gonna say cheerfully.
This is also
I'm glad you found the upside.
Another fun thing. I'm actually gonna run through this in the intended way, just to give viewers at least a perspective for how much this is skipping. So,
so we get to see, thank you, Utsu, that's really nice of you.
I actually absolutely, that's so close. I absolutely love the noises that the Wookiees make in the sound. They always sound so sad. They sound like, oh, why is this happening? I was having a good morning. So here, I'm gonna quick save. What you're supposed to do is just come to this window, see Grievous, and then you blow this up.
Damn. Being spotted. Get down there.
Our General Kenobi.
Hello there.
The amount of time that I spent making sure that you had to see Grievous before you could continue on, you would just be flabbergasted.
But yeah, so So you do that. You come through here. You know, there's that guy there. Then you see Tarful, and you know, you blow this up.
Where are they taking him? Grievous must want him.
I can't get over the Wookiee sounds. They sound in such distress.
Sounds so sad.
They're being I wish the sound. I know. I remember Brett got the sound team on some of the sound folks on his run, and they were talking about some of their work, and I'd love to know like which of these were pulled from the Lucas archives from Ben Burtt's work, and which of these were cooked up or inspired by it. Because it's always an interesting mix.
So you do all that, but what you do for the run is you do not look at Grievous. It is very bad to look at Grievous.
Don't look at Grievous. Don't scare Grievous.
Do not look at Grievous. Just kind of jump over here.
Don't verify Grievous's presence on Kashyyyk.
Yeah.
You acknowledge Tarful exists. You walk back.
Where are they taking him? Grievous must want
Then you come here. Then you look at Grievous.
Visual on a landing pad. Positive ID on General
Then
Yes, of course you do, because it's the cutscene of Grievous. Yeah.
You tap that on there. You throw that. And then
eliminate target.
And then these guys just stand here and let you spam them.
not usually. You have to use the shock grenade to stun them.
Which is interesting because the shock grenade, it's also damaging you, right? Or it's supposed to be, so you don't want to stand by it?
It is, but it's pretty insignificant compared to the
but like
that it gives.
Just this thinking of how I would have played this section, I don't stand by the grenades I throw where I try not to. I mean, I do in Apex Legends. Who am I kidding? Like I get, I blow myself up. But runners and other fast. Oh god, the fighter has no collision.
It actually does.
Oh, right here in the center, yeah.
It's fascinating. I can verify. I'm pretty sure that that's an honest hack that shipped in the game. Having been the one who tried to set that up to be bulletproof.
Yeah,
that was. Yeah.
God, these scavenger droids are the worst to deal with.
Now this section was not my level. I did help a little bit with bug fixing. I don't think I helped with optimization at all.
Gotcha.
So there are parts where I'm like, yeah, I know this part really, really well because I ended up, painstakingly doing a thing.
Well, now I feel bad.
But not most of it. Most of it, I'm just gonna be able to enjoy it without the. No, don't feel bad, right? Like we do this because we want people to have fun, and fun means different things to different people. It's all good.
JD Ford in chat says, watching someone just slip through your meticulous design must be equally parts frustrating and morbidly fascinating.
I mean, I just want to go back in time and fix it, that's all.
I do. Oh, God, yeah. Gabe wants to know if you can kill Grievous with that hack.
No, Grievous does not have a health bar or anything like that.
Yeah.
Grievous is just he's the moving equivalent of a prop.
That's right.
Hey, that's true in real life too, in the movies. Hey.
Grievous is horribly pathetic in the movies in the Clone Wars compared to his 2D Clone Wars variant.
Yeah, I remember. Go for it.
I believe 2D Clone Wars was out about the same time as this. Oh, hello, Army. Good to meet you. Was out at about the same time as this. And so seeing Grievous was like, oh shoot, it's that guy. Oh man, we better be careful around him. But and then he came out for 3 and the oh, that's gonna hurt. For 3 in the Clone Wars, and everyone was just like, he's not as scary as he's supposed to be. Okay, I need to deal with these guys.
Gotcha.
Setting up the Grievous guards was one of the most fun things for me as a level designer. They were just so fun. They operated unlike any other level in the game. And for me, that stuff is always really interesting, right? Take a new ingredient and try to blend it in a dish that's already being served, as it were.
Yeah, the Magna Guards are such like an interesting design component because they're not Jedi characters, but they use Jedi-ish weapons, but they're droids. So they're melee fighters, and this is a gun game. But they're so watching different games like try to figure out how to put them in. There we go. Oh no. Oh no. Uh-oh.
Nice.
We're off the map.
You have to know where you're going. Are you using sound to navigate?
No, I'm using this wall here, and I wasn't hugging it quite as well as I should be.
Gotcha.
Here we go.
Alex Jacobson wants to weigh in with a lot of glitch hunters within speedrunning communities actually have a lot of knowledge about how games work, whether it's dev experience or QA experience, and that's how they find a lot of exploits. Is wondering if someone, I wonder if someone forgot to stop this. At least that's to Alex's knowledge. It's obviously not true for all runners.
Absolutely, right? And even if you haven't worked in the industry, once you've found a few of these, you start seeing the kinds of ways that that we think, and you know, it opens up new horizons. I'm sure this isn't consistent across the discipline, but in my experience, a lot of level designers are super organized thinkers because you have to be able to manage huge amounts of data, and you have to be aware at any time of like, what is the player's objective, what tools do they have, you know, what do they know, what do they not know, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's going to lead you to setting things up in a specific way that people who have less of a tendency to organize stuff in that way are going to be able to exploit. You're going to leave holes in the way you've got stuff set up.
Let's see. I'm looking at chat. Matthew. Oh no, go for it, Utsu.
So there you saw me do the quick save, quick load to be able to skip the zipline portion. And here I'm actually using the... I didn't do that right. I'm actually using the game's physics to skip hacking this console here that that has the crane move. I did that too early. So you just shoot this, then as they spawn, release it, and then it drops it onto him, rather than needing to come over here and hack this, which you can still hack this and still move the crane despite there being nothing on it anymore.
Right. That's good implementation right there.
Chad is discussing how come the clone advisor was killable, but Grievous was not. I don't know if it's Gorge or George. Keon Gorge says they think Grievous is different because he's unique in the game, and there are plenty of clones with health bars and hitboxes elsewhere in the game because they obviously interact with the droids in some combat scenarios. Okay, we're just walking through the lad again, I see.
That doesn't even save time or anything, it's just fun for messing around. This level is what I call a hold W level.
A what?
A hold W level, you just hold the forward key because there's no skips or tricks, just kind of walking through it. I hold up the pistol here because it just doesn't use ammo.
Gotcha, yeah.
And the most combat I do is against the little scavenger droids.
I guess the pistol also, it uses less camera time, so if you're trying to keep an eye on the environment.
Yeah, I thought at first they did it because it makes you move faster, but no. I kind of wish that was the case, though. I feel like a whole lot more unique movement would also come into play sometimes with just pulling out the pistol.
Harley, I don't know if you remember anything about this, so we can jam on like the pistol game. I remember games from this era were very like, okay, you have your general gun, you have your situational guns that play your like maybe guns with higher skill uses that can then be used more broadly, like this game's sniper attachment. But the pistol is always like the fallback for when you run out of ammo, and that convention has changed a lot. But it feels like a leftover thing from Doom, where the pistol was just sort of your little backup if you could not find ammo and you needed to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. In some ways, it was. It's also worth remembering that this game was a game that was intended to be reaching a Star Wars audience, not necessarily a shooter audience. We expected to include shooters among them, but there were a lot of Star Wars fans at the time, especially new Star Wars fans, that didn't necessarily have a really sophisticated shooter skill base. And so we needed to make sure that if push came to shove and they had wasted all their ammo or used it on something, that they had a way to try to get to the next ammo drop, to try to get to the next load, etc. And so you know, as you do when you're making games, you look at existing games and you say, how did they solve that, right? We did not think we were going to be able to solve it just with the knife thing coming out of your hand, because that's actually a pretty difficult skill in and of itself, and there are enemies that it's pretty hard to kill that way. So, as you've proven today, Utsu, can kill anything that way if you know how.
Speaking on something about designing shooter stuff, something I was paying attention to on Utsu's run actually weirdly lines up with an experience I have playing Respawn's Apex Legends right now. I'm just giving all the love to Respawn. Oh yeah, this is bad. This is something.
Yeah, you can just climb up here and fly it all. I don't feel like playing this level today. I don't like this one.
Something is happening where every time I'm about to bring up the very specific question I'm about to ask, Utsu's just like, okay, let's break everyone's brains visually.
Yeah, that's a lot of these levels. Unfortunately, there's just no real times for breaks to make. You'll notice I'm leaving them behind a lot here, despite there's nothing really that like would affect them going forward. That's because I need them to be at full health. It's very important that they're at full health.
Aha! Fascinating. Interesting.
For the upcoming bridge section that they keep bringing up.
Yep, right, that bridge section is the hardest in the game, I think. So, yeah. We'll see how you break the last level. And then
it's actually really difficult. It's got a lot of finagling and strategy to it.
Yeah, it does.
Here you'll see.
You really have to have the whole picture for this bridge level. I'm be fascinated to see how you take it on.
It's very choreographed, and it's really frustrating sometimes because sometimes droids don't they don't dance the dance. So you're just like you're not in place. What are you doing?
I'm going to bring up my question really quick while we get going on the bridge. When you watch Utsu zoom in with the assault rifle or aim in on the assault rifle, you see like a pretty significant muzzle flare there. And I've begun to notice in shooters when the flare is so bright that I actually have trouble seeing my opponent, especially in a PvP game. Harley, do you remember any discussions about that and that animation effect when you were working on Republic Commando?
I don't necessarily remember anything specific to that. We played. The team played the multiplayer portion every Friday for like the second half of the day. We needed to make sure they were, as they say these days, eating our own dog food. I don't think that's what we called it back then. We gave a lot of feedback about how stuff that was working in the single player portion of the game might be getting in the way in the multiplayer. Most people on the team were pretty avid, multiplayer shooter players. But I don't remember that one specifically. It might have been because I think we had a tendency, and this will not surprise you, knowing how much love we put into 07's story. We had a tendency as a team to be either sniper or whatever the heavy. I don't remember what that thing is called. Anti-armor.
The DC-17.
Yeah. And so I'm not sure that would have gotten the due diligence that it really needed to get that level of polish, if that makes sense.
That's scans. I actually know spoken to some other developers that muzzle flare is often tweaking it as an intentional thing sometimes. But yeah. Bradley Ellis would like to know, was there an enemy that was hard to design around based on their difficulty to the player?
Yes. It's a surprising answer. I think I'm the only level designer who got to use every enemy in the game in a level because of the last level. It's basically an old home week for enemies. And honestly, the hardest one to design around were the Geonosian young things that come out of the eggs. They're surprisingly hard for players to hit. They move fast, and they can do a lot of damage, especially if you've got more than one of them, surprisingly quickly. And so being able to put enough of them in the room that they feel creepy enough, commensurate to the amount of damage they can do to you very quickly, actually turned out to be quite a challenge.
something I remember. We're past the bridge. We sort of just rolled past it. But the something I appreciate and the way that sequence plays out is that you go to blow the bridge, you click the button, the charge doesn't go off, and everyone panics. And that feels like one of the most authentic. Everyone from the clones to the advisor panics. And I feel like that broad spread, like, wait, what do we do, is one of the neatest games in general. I love it when, like, oh, you complete an objective, but something went wrong, and now you have to upend it. Like, it's just such a good tension raising thing.
I definitely really like the dialogue in that part. I was actually just thinking about that as it happened. I really like how just genuine 38 sounds when he's just like, what, misfire? Who packed that charge?
Yeah.
Who is the idiot who did that?
Yeah, Mike Stemley, who wrote a good portion of this game's dialogue, really did just an amazing job. When we came to him and said, okay, so we have this huge challenge where we had essentially a character that was one character but now has to be differentiated, and you have to feel like you're part of this brotherhood, blah, 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 blah. Can you do it? And you don't have very much time. Just did an amazing job. As a level designer, you come up with, this is the function of this line that I need. As you go through your level, you send it off, you get it back. And I can remember so clearly getting my lines back and being like, this stuff is great.
I absolutely love all the dialogue and just the voices. I love just clones in general. I think clones are way cooler than stormtroopers. I think they're cooler than rebels. I think they're cooler than droids. They're just my favorite military form in the entire series.
I remember hearing a Disney Infinity designer saying they ran into a really weird problem when they were making a Star Wars Disney Infinity product, which was they hit a weird age gap between how some players approached their levels, because obviously, depending on where you were, which line of Star Wars they're making content for, you were either shooting stormtroopers or you were fighting with clones, and they hit a point where younger players who grew up with the prequels and the Clone Wars, so people slightly younger than I think me and Utsu, were not as, they didn't view white armor as bad guys by default. I forget the full context of the quote, so I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
But I was like, that blew my mind, because I was like, to me, white armor is by default evil, and it's not like when the Clone Wars came around, but like that, like the link between these friendly clones and the stormtroopers was something I appreciated but didn't, internalize. But if you go up with the Clone Wars and like Captain Rex was like your action figure or something, that's different than what I had.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, visual language is. Go ahead.
I'm gonna skip a trigger that makes it so I don't have to blow up that door.
Nice.
Because I quick save and quick loaded. And I'm coming up on some really fun just parkour that skips a little bit of fights. Which the jumps look really, really hard, but they're actually surprisingly easy.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because
I love that. I love that high jump kit the Wookiees just did.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Martial arts. Boy, here we go. Oh my goodness.
Nice.
And here it goes again.
La 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 la.
Yeah, just these droids are like, all right, let's get this clone. What is he doing? Where is he going? What? These commandos are weird.
I always think of game AI as sort of being like, like a working schmuck in a way, because they're like, okay, we got to pretend to do the thing. Like be very Wreck-It Ralph, like, showing up for, or Reboot, the Canadian animated show, and to speedrunners especially, like just a player who is absolutely disregarding setting and fiction, and it's amusing.
It kind of makes me wish a little bit that this IP had allowed us fictionally to do Bloodgates, but it wasn't a thing. I mean, a few places we did with hacking consoles and stuff, but it doesn't really make sense very much in the IP.
Bloodgates? Do you mean like the keycard hunting of Doom?
No, I mean basically, like, we're just not going to let you out of this room. We're not going to let the exit be openable until you've killed everything in this room that needs killing, right?
Got it, yeah.
God of War.
That's it, yeah. Like you have to gather the resource from the enemies to kill them.
Yeah.
And it just puts a cap on that.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh no.
To your comment about white stormtroopers being evil or not evil, those are the kinds of details that usually an IP gives you an advantage on, right? Everybody knows the visual language of this thing, and so you don't have to teach your players to shoot the guys in white or not shoot the guys in white because they all know, they all saw the movie. But when you talk about a movie that has a history or an IP that has a history that spans that many changes in the universe, and people being more or less familiar with different time periods, it's really hard to get a shared context so that you can take advantage of the IP in that way.
And it's interesting because if you think about it from like a writing and thematic standpoint, like everything that happens is so functional, but like the movies also aren't free from, relying on visual language. They need you, the audience, to understand, morally or thematically what's going on. There's conversations about what the prequels, sort of do well, do less well. And the fact that they did, get a generation of kids to sort of attach to these characters. It's culturally, if you go on what's Star Wars TikTok and you watch like kids even younger than the prequel kids, learning about who growing up with Star Wars and making their videos and jokes and references. A, they're hilarious. B,
I love that such a thing exists as Star Wars TikTok.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt, but so here I'm doing something kind of interesting where I'm jumping over a trigger that spawns super battle droids. So that Tarful doesn't die, and I'm also making sure my my troopers don't come in, so they also don't hit the triggers, because clone troopers can hit the squad can hit trick. This is not this hard to jump over. What's wrong with me?
I'm leaning, trying to get you up over it. I want to see.
I know.
This isn't that hard.
I know you can't see it too also, but sometimes when you do a thing that that I did 100 times, or you don't do a thing, I'm like doing this, like especially when you trigger an explosion and you're right up in front of it, I'm like leaning away from the screen.
Oh, yeah. So you skip the trigger. Tarful can't hit the trigger that spawns super battle droids. Oh shoot, I didn't quick save. Let me do this again. Okay, there.
I remember watching this section and seeing how difficult this whole thing can be.
I mean, at least it's not a bug you can just stumble into. You really gotta want it.
Yeah, I feel like those ones are more forgivable, like the ones that you really have to force. There we go. Yeah, so Tarful can't hit triggers.
Bottom floor is all closed up.
So you come over here, you jump around this, and you can just kind of skip this room a little bit by just shooting this a lot.
Find a way to get him out of there.
Oh boy.
And it just destroys it.
Oh boy.
Close the blast doors on these windows.
And Harley, I'm pretty sure those barriers were just meant to say to players, don't come over here, don't come over here.
Pretty much. Yeah, right. You'd have to come in and some. No. But now you're hitting triggers.
These Trandoshans have a lot more health than normal Trandoshans. I don't know why they have so much more health.
I don't either. Probably to make this a little bit of a mini boss fight with the Grievous guard there. The first time I saw this enemy, I think I had not been believing we were going to be able to pull this off. So, I mean, it still had a lot of bugs and a lot of work to go, but the first time I saw this enemy with what the animators and the AI programmer had managed to do, I was just so excited. I couldn't wait to make this guy hoppity, jumpity, flippity around my levels.
Watch, I love how Utsu, like, in the record run that Utsu holds, you can watch her try to get this guard to actually jump down, because...
Oh, I don't have record at all. I have 4th place.
That's it. So my recent playthrough, which is on the same difficulty, I just looked it up right before we did this, is 8 hours.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I am a very slow player, right? I like to look at everything and I go around. I can't stand it if there's any ammo that I didn't pick up, etc. That's just my play style. But so this is less than a quarter of my playthrough on the same difficulty.
Yeah. You saw me there go to the menu and just load the chapter because that spawns me with more ammo and it puts my my squad at full health.
Yeah. Right, and that's a dev cheat, I believe, right? Because we needed to be able to just pop in and try new stuff out and have your squad be healthy. I think at some point we actually had to ask for a dev cheat to give a sort of random amount of health to your squad so that we would know what it was like to play through the sections of your level if you had done more or less well in terms of keeping them healthy.
Was cooperative play ever something that you experimented with in this game?
Not really. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I didn't
think
so, but
yeah.
it was just kind of something that like popped in my head, like.
And credit to Chad. Chad's actually been asking about co-op for a second. I just sort of we kept getting on other topics.
Sure.
There's talk of the sequel, which I believe has been discussed, that a sequel was considered and then canceled for this game. And people in chat were asking, oh, would the sequel have had co-op? And it's like, well, it never got that far, so that's not a question we can really have an answer for. You know, the sequel could have had, lat Commando sections where you're riding in the gunships and shooting things for all we know.
I would so love either a sequel or a remake. A remake with like modern day mechanics would be really cool.
Yeah, like there's been a lot of interesting remasters like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy that have been revisiting old.
I'd love to see this with like a sprint feature added, maybe some stuff from the new Battlefront that Commandos are in now.
Yeah, the Commandos have made the journey to EA's Battlefront 2, Harley. So,
yeah.
The folks at Dice does those. Dice EA. They're keeping your boys alive.
Yeah, I'm so happy that the creators of Clone Wars loved Delta Squad so much that they made them canon before Disney's declaration of non-canon.
Yeah, the reckoning, the splits, the Legends creation. I appreciate that as a Star Wars fan, that like, especially when they were heading into an era that the books had tread over so thoroughly. I appreciate that they just needed to come out and say, like, we can't maintain this, guys. This is really hard. We need to start over. You know, like, I know Delta Republic Commando isn't canon anymore, but that's never going to stop the fun I have with it.
Well, Republic Commando now is canon because of them being in the Clone Wars TV show, which thus by connection makes this game canon.
I believe, oh god, I don't want to do lore nerd discussions right now, but I believe, like, officially, like, this is Legends because the events of how the Kashyyyk battle started had been rewritten elsewhere. It's like how if you, funny enough, Halo has the same problem. They made a whole book called Fall of Reach, and then they made Halo Reach, the video game, and they play out in drastically different ways, even though I actually really like the Fall of Reach book.
It is really hard to keep a universe consistent over time, especially a long one. I just want to insert very quickly. You're back in my level, and I'm so glad to watch you grinding your way up these ramps the way that I hoped people would have to do, even in a speed run. I haven't
been managing my ammo well, so I'm actually not taking out these super androids as efficiently as I could.
Yeah, you really want heavy armor for those.
I noticed in the recorded run that you rely on, you're constantly, like, it's interesting to see where you burn time to go back and get your grenades, you know, like, you efficiently manage the grenades and stuff, Utsu. Like, there really is a beauty. If anyone here, I found Utsu's run on speedrun.com. If you want to watch Utsu, like, really just, like, show what's going on in this game. There's obviously other runners in there you can watch and appreciate, too. I just don't know their names. But the balance of, like, and, like, the weaving between them, you know, the skips, but the ammo management, like there's really every runner we've had on this week, Bubbles Del Fuego, Dave Stereo, this is a skill, and I've been treating this like this is a skill. This isn't just like I'm asking someone to come on and play a game. That's how I've been thinking, and I've been appreciating that this whole week. It's been such a blast.
Watching you walk up and stab that droid dispenser to death is like you're just stabbing me in the heart.
We could use a hold
Harley, do you have any other memories about working on this particular section?
So this whole section, what I really wanted, like after this, not the next step, but I think the step after, you finally get to see the sky again, right? And I really wanted it to feel. Essentially, I was drawing a little bit on Lord of the Rings. I wanted it to feel like this is the section under the mountain where you're just really slogging through, and then it opens up again. And also, it's late game, so I wanted it to be really hard. The space wasn't really there to put as many maneuver options as I wanted in. There's just, you know, in order to get all of your squad on screen firing, it was pretty difficult.
Gotcha.
So there I just jumped over a trigger that spawns more Trandoshans.
Oh yeah, I wondered what was going on with these little the little like jumps over the barrels and the rocks, because when I watched you run, I didn't fully understand it.
Yeah, that is just 100% making sure that more enemies don't spawn. This guy likes to not get flashbanged.
You hear that, boss? Sounds like
I don't know
why that is.
Yeah, I don't know why. He just kind of doesn't sometimes. Which is really frustrating because you throw that and you're going fast, and then suddenly your back is full of bullets.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, excuse me?
That's interesting because it hits the normal player too, you know, who might be trying to rely on flashbang grenades.
Yeah.
I wonder if he might be inside some collision initially that you know, a few more seconds it would be fine, but he's inside collision, and so from his perspective, he's not getting hit by the collision of the grenade when it goes off.
Harley, we have a question from chat. Dave Packer's back again. How does it feel to watch people? I mean, you sort of said this when they're melee cheesing the droid spawners, but how does it feel to watch people melee cheese other enemies like the super battle droids or the droidekas?
I mean, sometimes, especially when it's a thing that I'm like, oh man, I know exactly what I could have done to fix that. You know, it's a little bit hard, but mostly it's just great to watch people taking this bit of software and finding new ways to have fun with it. The idea that somebody would care enough about a game that you made to spend as much time as you would have had to spend to just gain the knowledge, let alone the skill to do this, is pretty great, right? Just imagining the many hours of somebody working to get this far.
We are now in part of the Citadel, which I believe makes we're moving closer and closer to the end of the game. We have officially 23 minutes left in the schedule, so just a reminder, but I don't quite know how that relates to where Utsu is in the run. Reminder for folks, if you have questions for Harley, questions for Utsu, throw them in chat. We are still grabbing them, even if Utsu and I stop every 5 minutes to geek out about Star Wars, because you can't stop me. Gabe throws in that the droidekas in particular have an exploit where if you run up to them, they can't shoot you because the guns stick through your body. Ew.
So that wasn't working correctly, so I'm loading just an autosave real quick. A lot of things just haven't been working right in this game. I don't know why.
Look, it's GDC summer. It's every unexpected thing that can happen will happen.
That's right. It's GDC 2020.
This is how we do GDC this year. Is everything going wrong in these uncertain times?
We are all learning to be the most flexible versions of ourselves.
There we go.
Oh, I know what I was doing wrong. I was quick saving, pressing E, then quick loading. When I need to press E, then quick save, quick load. So
is this a hack or a fighting game combo?
So this so Geonosian elites are supposed to spawn here, but they don't. I don't remember exactly the reason. I was told the reason once, but I don't remember the reason why. But yeah, so this is hacking, and also I'm not holding E. This is just going.
Nice.
Take a break.
I'll be 100% honest with you. This room is my least favorite room in the game, so the fact that you figured out how to skip it, it's all good, man.
Yeah, so the Geonosians don't spawn, but when you finish this hack, he gives the Geonosians a death command. So what happens is the game is just like, here you go. And you're like, oh, thank you. Handy.
Nice.
I didn't get to say this earlier. I appreciate whoever on the LucasArts animation team modeled this and animated this gun, because the little fingers, they're just like clicky right there. When I played this game, there's something satisfying about having that weapon out.
Yeah, I was learning what those were at first, and I learned that those are actually like this gun runs off of like Geonosian blood. So what it's doing is it's trying to stab into your arm and take your Geonosian blood, but you don't have Geonosian blood.
That's why they run out, and you can't just put more ammo in them. That's yeah.
And that's why Geonosian elites can just kind of keep using them over and over again. And you're like, when are you gonna run out of ammo? When I kind of wish there was a mechanic where I understand this game was made in 2005, so I doubt there was even a thing thought about. But it'd be kind of cool if there was a mechanic where like the more they shot at you with it, like you'd see their health like slowly going down or something.
It's pretty good narrative mechanical resonance there, honestly, the little detail. Actually, the game was made in 2003, 2004. I think we were basically done by 2005.
Right.
Yeah.
Jules Blumenthal says, even though we comment on how, things have been going, it's 2020, things go wrong. Many things have gone right, though, in this run. And Utsu, that's a big thanks to you, and I know I'm going to thank you profusely again at the end, but I just want to hope folks in the chat appreciate, we got some speedrunners out there in chat, so I know they appreciate, but from the development side, I hope folks appreciate that Utsu, what Utsu's been showing off today is something, that took a lot of practice and time, and we appreciate having you with us.
Are you usually in a position where you need to talk and play at the same time when you're speedrunning, Utsu?
Not if I'm not, like, wanting to.
Yeah.
My current personal best, I was quiet for.
Mm-hmm.
So
that doesn't surprise me.
We stream games on the GDC Twitch channel, and we do so while interviewing developers. And I have, after a couple years of doing it, I have a process now where I check out the game first and check out how intense it is, and depending on that intensity, I will either grab a coworker to help run the interview, or I will pre-record my footage for the game, because I've played games while interviewing the developers before, sometimes very intensely, and after every time the developer goes, man, like, we have to, like, when we're doing press interviews at E3 or whatever, and people want to interview us while we're playing the game, it's impossible. I don't know how you do this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know either. I don't remember the interview.
Yeah, totally. I very early on in my career, I realized I have to say, look, on demos or whatever, I can either play or I can talk. I can't do both.
Oh yeah, this Wookiee has to die.
Oh, sorry, Wookiee. Oh yeah, oh.
He has a rocket launcher, and we need that.
General Grievous, and it looks like he's bringing company.
Oh.
Grievous is escaping, sir. I've lost the train.
That's mean.
Yeah.
That's mean, but he should have just given me that rocket launcher to begin with.
Fair enough.
It's interesting because you probably Harley, were you working on this level again?
Yep.
Yeah, which means you probably put him in there like, oh, well, let's give the player a friend to help make this fight feel authentic. And
yeah, I thought he was probably going to get killed, but I didn't think he was going to get killed by the player.
Okay, I'm going to kill my own squad too, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they can be revived.
Right. As long as you're still alive, that's all good.
Stay focused, Deltas.
It is like, God, this is just one of those moments that feels like
these Grievous guys just aren't cooperating.
Like they're bouncing around and out of position.
Yeah, usually they're all supposed to cluster up like around there, and then they'll I'll be able to lock on the rocket launcher and kill all three at once. But they just weren't having any of it.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Going to chat real quick, Alex Jacobson would like to say they've never had a chance to get this much insight into game development as a speedrunner, so this is a cool opportunity as a runner, and they're watching their friend run a cool game. Aw, thanks, Alex. Thank you for joining us. Matthew Miller would like to say every time someone interjects with chat comments, they expect to hear about donations, then they remember it's GDC and not GDQ. Game development done quick, which, as Dylan Watson points out, it's just a game jam. I will say, I think GDQ is going on later this month, and I hope folks who have the opportunity to can check it out and donate to that event, because it's a neat event, and without them organizing things, you know, we wouldn't have, I don't think we would have found Utsu or the other runners we've had. Oh, we have a question. John Kruchowski would like to know, how were the levels coordinated with the story team? Were the levels made first and then story tacked on, vice versa, or a mixture of both? I bet it's a mixture of both, but I'm interested to hear how that played out.
A little bit of a mixture of both. Mostly, though, the story team, led by Tim Longo, who is the creative director, wrote the story overall and then split the story up into gameplay parts and handed those gameplay parts to us, saying, okay, your job is to make it fun with gameplay and also make sure this part of the story gets told.
So we're coming up with the final level here.
On the tree part, yeah, the tree climb.
Yeah, the tree part where if you thought I was... Wait, what do you mean my squad's unavailable? They're literally right behind me.
Huh.
Nope.
Oh, that's not what I want. I'm gonna load autosave.
That's a different kind of speedrun bug.
Oh wow, I'm all the way back here. Interesting. All right, I will remember to autosave or quick save. This is the last level is probably going to hurt you a lot if simply destroying these droid dispensers has hurt you. Because I know the last level is supposed to you drop off your squad at the turrets in like reverse order of the way you got them and stuff. And well, you'll see what we kind of do.
While we get back to that section, Gabe Paffer would like to ask, did the LucasArts team ever get any pushback on concepts like back to implant your new weapons based on them not fitting with Star Wars, which I think is just a good springboard for like conversations about how you work with IP holders and how you try to build a good partnership with them.
Yeah, I mean, I was at LucasArts for 7 years and worked on a number of games, and for every one of those, there was always a negotiation with IP for stuff, right? Because we were always wanting to and trying to push game mechanics sort of through a narrative sieve, if you will, right? So we'd come up with like, oh, well, we could just make this happen, and so yeah, there were always intense negotiations about that. In terms of this particular one, I don't remember that there were any particularly vivid conversations. I know that we spent a lot of time mechanically working on how do the back to tanks work. You know, we started with just regular health pickups, like mini games did and do at the time, I don't exactly remember why we arrived. Oh, we arrived on this because we really wanted you and your squad to feel like you needed to help each other out health-wise. And it didn't make a lot of sense to be trading health. You are doing a look-at trigger thing, aren't you? Yeah.
This is kind of finicky at all. It's a little bit of RNG, so
I know what's about to happen.
I think that's good.
Sorry, you've hijacked my brain. I was probably in the middle of a word, and I can't.
No. I actually, Harley, I would appreciate if you watched this part because
I have to.
Yeah.
I have to restart. Actually, I have a hard save, so I can load that next time if I don't get it. But yeah, this part is a little bit of RNG. Since the barrel has to fling in a way where I can both get on top of it, but it's also high enough for me to get somewhere. Oh, that's the wrong kind of nade. Oh, whoops. Okay, here. Let me load my hard save. Also, these textures are so just low graphics that it's hard to line up sometimes because I'm just kind of going off of a vague smudge.
Here we
I'm
go.
gonna try to get this by a hair. No, that's not gonna work. This is the most finicky part of the run, but the skip is very much worth it.
Yeah, again, hardly, like I said, I went in, I was like, oh, she worked on these sections. I watched these sections. Uh-oh.
The textures are actually probably lower res in this part of the game, even on the same objects, than they are in other.
Yeah, I think this will work. This might work.
Bradley Ellis.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Let it go. Let it go.
Nice.
So you walk up here.
Can't hold it back anymore.
And lovely look at all that Unreal Engine 2 goodness.
Yep.
Bradley Ellis would like to know, what was your favorite level to design, Harley, and why?
I think it was this one. I got to play with every enemy. I actually didn't start out as the level designer for this. Kevin Schmidt actually did the paper design and had worked with the artist to get the layout. But then he transferred over to be the lead level designer and brought me in to finish it. And so I had this whole thing where I wanted players to face every enemy they'd faced with a squad, but to be able to use what they knew about the enemies to face them.
So 6-2 is over here now, but 0740 are still back there. I'm gonna quick save here because this egg here in particular will sometimes fall on your head as you're trying to run through. Or that one also will land on your head as you're trying to run through.
Oh no!
Gotta look up.
I'm just trying to make the most straightforward path through here because you don't kill all these eggs until the very end of the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
sense.
that's how I played this game as well when I was doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of like you're kiting the whole room to be enough that you can use your area of effect actions to handle them, as opposed to like grinding straight through and dealing with all the little swarms.
Yeah, if you do that, you're just gonna use up all your ammo and be really sad.
Is it a different feeling? Oh, well, actually, we're at the key part of the game here, so I'm going to let this play out. Sorry, Alec, we'll get to your question.
I have a question about this turret.
Yeah.
Its fire rate feels so inconsistent. Does it have like a set fire rate or anything, or ammo count or anything? Because sometimes it feels like it takes like 5 seconds for it to start firing again after a burst. And then sometimes it feels like if I wiggle my mouse, it starts to shoot again.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't have a set ammo count because we needed people to be able to shoot this thing until it was done, because this is the end of the game and you can't finish the game until that's done. You like my awesome destruction there?
Yeah.
And that was nothing like.
And that's it. That's when the run ends. Oh no, because you have to do an evac, right? Yeah.
You blew it up so hard. There's
you got to see Scorch spawn.
Not a trace of it.
Oh,
Also,
hey, Scorch.
Nice.
If you look on my my ally counter, you'll see now that there are 2 40s. Because it's got 2 arrows because 07 and 40 are still back at the beginning of the level, but it also spawns a 40 and a 6-2 as if they are rendezvousing with you.
Oh, that's funny. Fun. I haven't remembered trying to script the changes in the HUD up until now. We wanted to show. Yeah.
And time would end there.
Yep. And now we have the epilogue where sadly Seb gets left behind, and oh man, I believe canonically in Legends Seb survived. I think Star Wars Galaxies patched him in as a like an amnesiac clone or something. That's it. That's the end of Star Wars Republic Commando. Utsu, thank you so much for doing that run.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I missed some stuff that I wasn't expecting to miss, but that's all right.
I mean, it was awesome to get to see you do it, to get to talk to you while you did it. Yeah, I know how hard it is to play and talk, so I think you did an amazing job.
Before we get out of here, we have a couple minutes left in our session, so we will take some questions from chat. First one is from Alex Jacobson. Is it different feeling like seeing a skip of a level you made using a bug that would have been that would have been a mistake of a different part of a team. So I guess it's like if you worked on the level, but then the bug is someone else's responsibility. Does it sort of feel different versus you going, oh, I did that myself?
Yeah, it does. I'm much more inclined to forgive somebody else's bug than my own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's earlier I said I wish I could go back in time and fix them. That only applies to the bugs that I know I left in there.
Mm-hmm. And Heath Close would like to ask, you mentioned paper design. What steps did you take to approach a level around this time?
So, I mean, I think this is probably still true across the board. Paper design is a really important step, right? It helps you understand the scope of the game. It helps you have conversations with other disciplines about the efforts they're going to need to put in. I think that I did paper design for the levels in this game in Excel, because early on I discovered that I would get really particularly fussy about making things look pretty, given a tool that would allow that to happen, and that was just an unbelievable time sink for me. And so I started using Excel because you could use the little draw tools in Excel, and there was no possible way you could make it look pretty. And so I could let go of that need and just really focus and iterate on the concepts, the ideas, the layout, the architecture, etc., of the space. And I kept using that trick for a long time. That's one of the downsides of having architecture interest, is that architectural drawings are gorgeous, and there's really no reason to spend the time to try to make your drawings that pretty, unless you're a trained architect, in which case it comes naturally.
Right on. I'm going to start wrapping things up then. For folks who watch this, thank you so much for joining the speedrun of Star Wars Republic Commando. Thank you to Utsu and Harley Baldwin for joining us. Utsu and Harley, if people want to follow you, like learn more about what you're doing now, Utsu, your other runs, Harley, your work at Shell Games, where should they follow you? Where should they find you online?
You can find my Twitter. It is at UtsuMade, and someone else followed my dummy Twitch. What the hell? And then I'm actually gonna just stop that stream now. And then what is it? You can find my actual Twitch is twitch.tv/UtsuWoo.
I would definitely, for the folks who somehow found the dummy account, I guess probably because we're one of 2 accounts streaming Republic Commando right now.
Maybe.
I didn't think of that. Make sure you follow Utsu's main account. Harley, where can they find you?
I'm Ms. Harley Baldwin, MS Harley Baldwin, on Twitter. And yeah, all of my Shell Games work, and also some of the stuff I'm playing and struggling with, and etc. You'll find it up there.
Right on. Thank you so much to chat for watching. Please make sure to rate this session. Give any feedback you have, whether it's about the sound, the video, the audio, what was discussed. Do it. Thank you, Dylan, for noticing my psycho masks behind me from Borderlands. Normally, I would try and show off my cats, but I had to change cameras, and this one's actually on a narrower angle. With that, I think that's about it. All I'll say is this is our last speedrun for the week. We're wrapping up GDC Summer today. Thank you all so much for joining us. We sincerely, we've worked so hard to try and make something fun for you, something informative, and seeing all these comments talking about how much people learned from this game really makes me feel better. All I'll say is that other than that, I really do feel like we got to see something special here today with Utsu and Harley. And I know I sort of did this partly to torture whatever developer I could get. I was like, ooh, I want to see break their game and see how their face goes. But at the same time, like I said, this is speedrunning is where the line blurs. It's where players approach a game literally as the software is implemented, not figuratively as the developers intend. And I hope it's not our original idea. Double Fine and IGN and other folks have done runs like this, so please go check theirs out as well. And I can only stress enough, thank you. This is cool. This is special. Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. That's it.
It's been
Thank
great.
you all. All right, take us home, everyone. Bye.